Thanks everyone for joining us. Good afternoon. My name is Isis Lopez. I'm the Community Engagement Manager for Development Services Department within the City of Austin. Appreciate y'all tuning in this afternoon for our stakeholder meeting to talk about our building review and inspections updates. If you can go to the next slide, please. Before we begin, I want to quickly review our engagement format, just so you know what to expect for today. We're going to start with a presentation from our subject matter experts from our department. I also want to note that we have a lot of representatives as well to answer questions from the Austin Fire Department. We'll have presentations from Austin Energy and Austin Water, and we also have our right-of-way from Transportation and Public Works Department. I want to note also that we have our building official, Todd Wilcox, as well, tuned in as well. So we have a lot of experts in the room to answer questions and to give you updates on what has been, what's new in our department, or what to expect. We are going to start with that presentations, and then toward the end, we will have an opportunity for questions and answers from you. Questions can be posted on the Q&A bag. So if you select the Q&A portion at the bottom of your screen, you can ask questions there. Doing that versus the chat kind of helps us keep track of as the questions come in and making sure that we answer those questions. If you're having issues with either of those functions, please feel free to chat me and I can help troubleshoot those. And then while we hope to answer all of your questions, we might not have time or the information available, but we will be posting a follow-up response and collect all those questions after the presentation. I would also like to note that this meeting is being recorded and you will be receiving a link to the presentation and the recording as well afterward. So thanks everyone for joining us. We will go ahead and get started with this presentation. If you can go next. We are going to talk about our improvement initiatives. We'll be talking about our citywide site plan process improvement, and then we'll also be giving you some division updates on program updates, improvements, and some process improvements. So we'll go ahead and get started with citywide site plan process improvement initiative. And for that, we have Joydeep Goswami.
Hi, everyone. Joydeep Goswami, Division Manager of Development Services Department Land Use Review. I'll be talking about the site plan transformation process. In 2023, the City of Austin started a review of the site plan review process. As part of that review of the process, there was 45 initiatives that were recommended. As of today, 26 of those initiatives have been completed. The initiatives included recalibrating the completeness check process, formalizing the re-review process, and improving the internal and external comment resolution process, along with several others. If you'd like a list of the site plan initiatives, you could go to the website listed right there, the publicinput.com/site plan website. To see the current status of those initiatives. After implementing those 26 that I just referenced, we're already starting to see some improvements in the overall site plan review process. The chart that you're seeing in front of you shows a decrease in the number of days that a site plan is spending in completeness check at this point. Although it has gone down, we're still hoping to continue to see a downward trend in the amount of time it takes for a site plan to get through completeness check, and we're hoping that trend that we're seeing now continues. And then, so the first thing I mentioned was completeness check. This is for the total number of days that we're seeing for a site plan in formal review has gone down this quarter. Again, we're seeing progress, but we're hoping to see continued decreases in the total number of days. And as you can see, the target is to get it down to below 200 days. Hopefully, next meeting, I can present numbers that continue to show an improvement. That's all I have for mine. I will turn it over to Intake and Roderick Burns. Thank you.
Afternoon, everyone. My name is Roderick Burns. I'm the Division Manager for the Customer Experience Unit, which includes the intake teams and the building and contractor trade and services teams. At the time these slides were created, our residential intake team was at 1 to 2 business days turnaround after submittal. Our commercial team was 2 to 3 business days turnaround from submission. 1 day has been added to each one of those. So residential is actually at 2 to 3 business days and commercial is at 3 to 4 business days. The only significant thing to note is that the FY25 fee schedule is in effect for both of these teams. Building contract trade services, current processing time for BCTS team is 6 to 7 business days. And one thing I forgot to mention just a second ago, the increase in processing time in residential and commercial and in the BCTS team is a result of losing some temporary staff members. We're working with less staff right now. We're running as fast as we can, just kind of hard to keep up at the pace that we were. But again, right now in BCTS, the processing time is about 6 to 7 business days. And one significant thing to note about this group is there's a new fee called the permit maintenance fee, which will apply to permit changes such as transfers of permits from one contractor to another, extensions performed manually by staff, address changes, and description of work or scope of work changes, including meter or electrical services changes. The fee is it's not a large amount, but it's just a new fee. So we thought we'd bring that up, make sure everybody was aware of it. Yeah, that's all I have for today. And I'll turn it over to Alan Wu with the building plan review team.
Good afternoon, everyone. Alan Wu. I am the interim chief plans examiner for building plan review. I'll be talking over commercial plan review and also residential review, and we'll start with CPR, some performance metrics. Fiscal year 2024, we are operating at 99% on-time reviews, 58.82% approvals in cycle 1, and we processed 2,682 new PR applications. And to kind of break that down, 312 were new ground up construction and 2,370 were remodels, additions, or repairs. So to go over a few processes, changes, implementations that we've done in CPR. The first one starting November 4th, standalone permit review responsibilities will be transferred over to building plan review in an effort to help our understaffed inspection group that has been performing those reviews. Second item, the memo for the A2L refrigerant. So in 2021, the APA introduced a rule mandating an 85% nationwide phase down in high global warming potential and HFC refrigerants by 2036. This directly impacts residential and light commercial air conditioners and heat pumps manufactured after January 1st, 2025. Unexpectedly, a lot of the manufacturers were rolling out this new production line sooner than expected, so we had to kind of adjust everything. And this unexpected change comes before the code can adopt or accommodate some of these new code mandates. So the city drafted up a memo to address this issue. The memo allows the city to recognize the new code provisions related to this ahead of the code adoptions. And this avoids the need for AMOCs to be submitted for every single project. So residential plan review, performance metrics. Residential plan review is operating at 94% on time, 43.84 approvals in cycle 1, 3,043 applications processed. Express permits processed 2,417, and then 3,596 scheduled time trade appointments. And there is a breakdown. Virtual appointments, 2,749, 847 in-person appointments, and 14 appointments on average per day. And I have 2 updates here. The ArcStar program, over the last year, City of Austin has been partnering with ArcStar in testing their AI tool for plan review. This will be an applicant tool that will allow applicants to generate a preliminary plan review using artificial intelligence. DSD is hoping to launch the first phase of this applicant tool to perform residential zoning reviews by mid-year 2025. And the Home Task Force. So an interdepartmental Home Task Force was created in response to a council resolution to address the many questions and challenges in the current implementation of the home program. The goal of the task force is to focus on streamlining processes, fees, procedures and exploring creating one or more DSD ombudspersons to assist with addressing concerns and walking the public through the process. And that's just to name a few of the goals of this program. I'll hand it off to the next presenter.
Thank you, Alan. My name is Tim Taylor, and I am the Chief Building Inspector for DSD. So building inspections, who are we? Building inspections are, commercially, we are 23 inspectors plus 4 supervisors plus a division manager, Marty Starrett. Residentially, we are 31 inspectors plus 4 supervisors plus 1 division manager, who would be Scott Cochran. And I'm the Chief Building Inspector. This captures some of our numbers for the last calendar year compared to the year before. So as you can see, currently year to date, we have done 252,667 inspections, which is down 11% from the calendar year prior, 2023. Our standards are 90% next day inspections. What that means is if you request an inspection prior to 6 a.m., it will show up on the next day, which would be that day, obviously, if it's 6:03 a.m. So anyway, 91% of the time we are doing next day inspections. And we're proud of that. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of folks hustling around the city. What we're seeing in inspections is growth in the ETJ, the extraterritorial jurisdiction, where if you look at these numbers, you'll see that they have gone up. It's 19% of total of our inspections were in the ETJ this year. This is the highest number we've seen in the ETJ in the last 10 years. Just a couple of updates. Another huge deal for inspections. Our residential inspectors are required to be certified and licensed by the Texas State Board of Plumbing Examiners. So as of October of this year, 97% of our residential inspectors are now licensed to conduct plumbing inspections. We have not been in this percentage since 2019. Commercial is done a little different in the ETJ. We do plumbing and electrical inspections in the ETJ. There are things, along with our inspections, we do our continue education to maintain our certifications, to stay current with code changes and building practices. So a good example of this is our BPI, which is sort of a traveling code show that will always set us back, typically in October or November each year. So we've recovered from that and are back online. One of the things we've done internally to try to complete and encourage communication between our plan review teams and our building inspections teams is we are now having regularly scheduling meetings to just improve consistency and improve our take on what building code is actually saying. So what you're actually is being approved is understood more clearly in the field now. I think that's it for me. Steve Leach with Expedited has a few words.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Steve Leach. I am the division manager of Expedited Plan Review, City of Austin. So these are our fiscal year. These are year-over-year comparisons of FY24 to the previous fiscal year, FY23. This slide is specifically residential. And you'll see that our residential applications actually increased last year. Wait times for appointment went down, and our percentage approved in cycle 1 went down slightly. It was 79.8%, and now it's 79%. So pretty good year all in all for residential. Commercial was a little bit of a different story. It was a pretty slow year for commercial. Only 136 applications. With fewer applications, wait times went down, and approved in cycle 1 went up. Both of those are good things. Of course, we'd like to see more applications come in, but that's a little bit beyond our control. So these next couple slides are just some stuff that we're working on in Expedited right now. Some of the things that we're dealing with. Expedited, as some of you may know, is kind of split up into 3 squads, 3 review teams, each of which has a supervisor. A couple of months ago, I think August, one of our supervisors was reassigned over to commercial plan review to help those guys out, because they've got some staffing holes over there. So we lost a supervisor. One of our coordinators who does intake and coordination for us, we've got 2. One of them is on an extended leave. So we're down to 1 person doing intake and coordinating projects out. And then, as Alan mentioned a few minutes ago, plan review divisions have kind of taken over the standalone permit request review function, and expedited MEP reviewers will be assisting commercial plan reviewers in those tasks. We also, some of you may know this, there's a big expansion of the airport coming up, and our public projects plan review team is going to be reassigned and dedicated to that project specifically. During that time, other public projects, which right now are primarily schools, are going to be serviced by the expedited. So we've been working on that transition. Starting in October, so a month or so ago, we now have fees in expedited to process revisions to projects in a standard review format kind of way. So what we would call an administrative review. Just to dive into that a little bit, in a typical expedited project, we do what's called a prerequisite review, and then we bring the customer and consultants in for a meeting to perform the formal review. What we've discovered over the years is that while that's a process that customers value for big, complicated new projects, most revisions to projects are not so big and complicated, and that process is really unnecessary in a lot of cases. And so, customers had asked us to, process revisions to these projects in a more standard way, where they, you just turn it in and we look at it and we either approve it or we reject it and issue comments and proceed that way. The issue had always been for us that expedited didn't have that service in its fee schedule. So we do now, and if that's the service that the customer desires, we're able to accommodate that. So just a couple, improvements that we've been working on. In the spring of this year, our residential program transitioned entirely to the project docs format. That's a case management software that our commercial program has used for 4 or 5 years now. And we wrote a workflow and rolled it out for residential earlier this year. There's a learning curve there, both with staff and with customers, but I think that we are over the hardest part, and generally I think that people are on board with it and like it. Expedited plan review performs what are called preliminary plan review consultation meetings for all of the plan review divisions. And that process, the process of applying for what we call PPR and kind of the setup, if you will, of that has historically been a kind of very hands-on, very kind of labor-intensive process. So we are working on a web form application that we think will streamline that process a lot when it goes live. And then expedited, because we've been in the project docs world for a while, and we've got some subject matter experts in that area. Expedited has been helping our IT division with writing workflows for groups that are thinking about adopting project docs, and then also with trying to really educate and assist work groups, either that are using project docs completely or just assisting work groups that are partner departments that are involved in our reviews, and helping them kind of understand and get comfortable with that software. And that's all I have to say. Tree, Mr. Jim Demkowski.
Thanks, Steve. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for coming. I am Jim Demkowski. I'm the division manager for the Community Tree Preservation Division here with the City of Austin. For today's presentation, specifically for you all, we'll be talking about the single-family plan review and the standalone tree permits. So just a little bit of metrics and performance for year to date from last year. This time, we've had 1,919 reviews. It's actually down about 13.5% from last year, but our on-time percentage is up to 97.8. For the standalone tree permits, that previous slide was for the plan review, single family plan review. For the standalone tree permits, like your dead, diseased, imminent hazard, your violations, utility and emergency utility permits, standalones, that volume was up about 14%, as you can see, but our on-time percentage was also up a little bit, trying to maintain that on-time percentage. So some of the initiatives that we've started doing so far this year is staff is getting to visit every demolition site for those single family plan reviews for demolition that come in. When we're doing those reviews and we're on site looking at the trees to confirm the surveys, we're proactively contacting the applicants if we find a hazardous tree or a mitigation exempt species. So that those trees could be removed if wanted to be removed with the demolition while you all have the equipment out there. We're getting to 95% or so of our single family plan review. We're actually able to make the site visits. We're continuing to provide our monthly Tree Smart classes. So if you have staff or yourselves that are interested or more wanting to know process or about the city's tree regulations, we have those monthly. And we're continuing to improve our communication with our staff that is doing the standalone violation permits, and also trying to keep improving the communication between 311 as all potential violations and complaints are required to be logged through 311 now. And I believe that's all I have for my slides today. And taking over will be Jim with Austin Water.
Yeah, so this is mine, Rebecca Batchelder. I'm here to talk about our on-site water reuse permitting requirements. They're still relatively new. People are still getting used to them. So we're just letting people know what to expect when they come in for on-site water reuse permits, which is not technically a part of the building permit, but you cannot get your building permit approved until you have an approved on-site water reuse permit if you are implementing on-site water reuse. So if you could move to the next slide. So the only folks that will have an OWRS permit, OWRS review added to their projects is if they are connecting to reclaimed line or installing an on-site water reuse system. Next slide. So there are certain developments that are required to connect to the reclaimed system, and some that are required to connect to or required to implement on-site water reuse. So large developments over 250,000 square feet have to connect to the reclaimed line if they are within 500 feet of it, and they have to use that water to meet irrigation, toilet flushing, and cooling tower demands. And then if you're less than 250,000 square feet of gross floor area, you are required to connect to it if you are within 250 feet, and the same demands have to be met, all non-potable demands. But for folks that are farther than those connection distances to the reclaimed line, you're going to be required to implement on-site water reuse if you're over 250,000 square feet. So for most buildings over than 200 or developments over 250,000 square feet, you will have to collect rainwater and air conditioning condensate into a single cistern and use that to meet all non-potable demands on the site. If you're a resident, suburban development or a garden style development with a less density, you will, so it'll be a floor to area ratio of less than 1 and more than 4 buildings. You do not have to bring it into your building. You just need to use that to meet irrigation demand. And there are some projects that are less than 250,000 square feet of gross floor area, but will be required to use AC condensate to meet their cooling tower demands. So the requirements on your building plan, if you are connecting to reclaimed, will be you have to show your dual plumbing in your plans, and you will have to get an alternative water systems permit, which is approved by special services. For your OWRS, if you are required or voluntarily doing OWRS, your building permit, you will have to submit your OWRS permit application, which again is its own standalone application. But it has to be approved before your building permit is approved, and you could submit that at any time. We strongly encourage folks to submit it early. because anything that you show in your on-site water reuse permit will need to be reflected in your building permit, and we're going to be checking for consistency. So that has kind of caused some people to have delays in their reviews when they are, have gotten pretty far in their building permit review cycles, but then towards one of the later cycles, they get approval for their OWRS, and then they have to start making some changes to make sure that those are reflected in their building plans. So we strongly encourage folks to get that submitted early. You also have to have that alternative water system permit application from Special Services if you have an on-site water reuse system. There are also some requirements for inspection for OWRS systems that we're wanting folks to be aware of. You will have to have your system inspected and shown that it's constructed according to your permit, but there are a lot of other supplemental materials that you need to submit at inspection. So that's going to be your O&M manual, a contract with your system manager, a contract with your water quality lab, and then of course a certification of construction and a site inspection. So all of those need to be provided at your inspection or shortly thereafter, but you need to have all of those in order to get signed off on your OWRS inspection and then move on to your certificate of occupancy. To get resources on how to meet all the requirements of the on-site water reuse system permits or reclaimed system, here are some websites to go to. And of course, you can always reach out to me and my team. We're happy to answer questions. It's a new program, so we know that there will be a lot of questions, and we just strongly encourage people to get their question answered as early in the permitting process as possible to make sure that there are no delays in permitting. And that's all I've got.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Robert Ruiz, and I'm part of the newly created meter review team. So as mentioned, I'm part of the newly created meter review team, and what we have been established to do is to help your project go from finish to end and ensure that we get meters set appropriately when the time comes. So what we do now currently is we look at the diagrams, labels, all of the one lines. We also dig into the permit. It's somewhat of an official review. We are currently reviewing on our side, on the Austin Energy side, all service locations. The verbiage here says commercial projects. I just want to stress that we are all services that are 350 amp single phase or 225 3-phase and above. So all of the higher services is the Austin Energy meter review team. And we will be ensuring that the ESPAs and all of the other memos and folders that are used by our service dispatch and customer care are also implemented inside of those folders, and the documents are correct to ensure for a smooth meter set when the time comes. Next slide, please. So in short, what we're saying here is that we are somewhat of a quality assurance team. So again, we are going through your documents. We are going through all the folders. We are giving an official review to ensure that all of the supporting documents and the meter counts and everything associated with that do match. So currently we are reviewing all of those diagrams through the review process that are through our building process specialist, which is somewhat of an intake for the Austin Energy design team, or I'm sorry, Austin Energy meter review team. And currently we are working with DSD to embed ourselves in the DSD process. So that way we are in the front of the process and not at the end. Currently, we're reviewing at the electrical permit. At this time, your project had already been completed or is coming to full fruition to be complete. And we are looking at those services to ensure that what has been incorporated in the field matches our design criteria to ensure you get meter sets. Soon, we will be at the beginning with commercial plan review and the DSD process, to where we will no longer be reviewing at the electrical permit, but we will be reviewing at the plan review process. This enhancing the actual process itself and allowing concurrent reviews to give for a more streamful and successful path to completion for the customer. And that's all I have.
Good afternoon. I apologize for my video not working, but my name is Joey Hernandez. I'm the electric metering supervisor over distribution meter and operations here at Austin Energy, and I am also over the newly created meter review team. Okay, so contract disconnect program. This program enables participating electrical contractors to basically rebuild residential electric services. They can actually disconnect and reconnect themselves. This job was previously performed by Austin Energy crews. So what we're saying is that basically if the electrical contractor enrolls and participates in this program, they will be allowed to cut seals and supply conductors to perform their work and to energize their services. This CDP is currently open for enrollment and it runs through December 22nd of this year. The program currently has 130 registered electrical contractors. Next slide. This fiscal year, we've had 512 outages performed by registered contractors. The outages do not require Austin Energy truck roll to perform these. Normally, we have to roll a truck to perform an outage, but like I stated on the earlier slide, if the electrical contractors enrolled in this program, they're able to basically disconnect and reconnect themselves. For more information on the contractor disconnect program, please visit our website, and our link is there in the slide.
Hello, everyone. Cortez. I'm going to be highlighting and presenting this slide for the escalation process. Austin Energy now has a formal escalation process in place. A team was created to assist in addressing customer escalations and resolving issues efficiently for business continuity. The AE resolution tool leverages technologies to facilitate communications and processing to resolve elevated customer escalations. The tool is allowing us to track the escalations by status and alerts coordinators to research or reassign to the appropriate department for resolution. So all escalations should and will be starting to submit to, as you can see, the AE escalation resolution at austinenergy.com. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joseph, and thank you so much, Austin Energy, for your information, and Austin Water, and to our staff members who presented information on their respective divisions. Again, this is the portion that we have for opportunities to ask questions to our staff members. Our staff members will now be turning on their cameras as they are preparing to answer your questions. If you can please use the Q&A portion of Zoom at the bottom of your screen. It should be at the bottom to ask that question. Using that Q&A function allows us to keep track of which questions have been answered and which questions are pending answered. Also, you can use the raise hand function if you would like to speak up, and then I can go ahead and call on you if you do. We do have some questions that came in on the chat, although and we can note them as well. We had a question that came in that asked us has the city manager or city council mentioned when they will allow you to hire the required personnel to maintain the review times and workloads. And for this question, I will hand it over to Joydeep to talk about how he is currently managing the review times with his current staff.
Thanks, Isis. Yeah, and thank you for the question. We haven't gotten anything specific from the city manager or city council regarding that specific issue, but internally, we are looking for ways to make sure that we are able to maintain and not only maintain, but improve our review times. For example, I know for the drainage and water quality team, the team that has lost a few staff members, we're actually getting assistance from previous review members that have moved on to other departments. They're actually providing some overtime help to us so that we can try to maintain our review times. We're also, just looking internally to other groups within our department that might be able to help with site plan reviews and environmental reviews. So, the goal here is to maintain our review times and improve on them with the staff that we have. I'm hopeful that in the future, if additional staff is needed, that we would get that okay. But right now, we haven't specifically gotten any direction on hiring to maintain that.
Okay. Thank you, Joydeep, and I appreciate the question. The next question was asked during the presentation from Austin Water. And so for the participant who asked, please raise your hand if this was not meant for Austin Water. But the question was, are people starting to do this part of the process during the site plan development review? If you can type it in the question, or I don't know, Rebecca, if you wanted to add that, if you had context for that, but if not, we can wait for the participant. Oh, Marna, let me go ahead and Okay, if you want to unmute yourself to provide more context, go ahead, feel free to do so.
Good afternoon. This is something that I've been looking into. I haven't really run into it on one of my projects yet, that where we were behind on getting ahead of this idea of getting the wastewater or reclaimed water. So is that something that they've been, now that it's in process, that they're going to be doing during the site plan portion of these developments, or, and who will be looking at in the remodel or building process?
Okay, a few questions. Let me see if I understood that what you asked. So one part I heard was that you want to know if projects are having to incorporate on-site water reuse system components into their site plan and get approved on those. And the answer to that is yes. There are many aspects of on-site water reuse systems that need to be shown in site plan stage, and that's going to be your metering, and just kind of the general layout of your system. But primarily, it's a question of metering that we're going to need to see a dedicated meter for these systems. And we'll need to see that at site plan stage. So there's sort of an initial screening that happens during site plan to see if the mandate applies to your project, whether it's the connecting to reclaimed or implementing on-site water reuse. And then once it's determined that it does apply, then usually we're notifying people. A lot of people aren't aware in advance, though some are. And then they're kind of working on incorporating those elements into their project. That was the first question I heard. I'm not sure if I understood it or if there was another question.
Well, actually, you answered it by answering that portion of the question.
Okay.
Basically, you're saying that you can do sort of let them know that this is going to be on site, but the actual design will be taking place when the building is built.
The design will take place before the building is built. You need to have a OWRS permit approved before you can construct your building. So you can get your site plan approved before you have a complete design of your system. You just need to show kind of some of the system components. If you have a cistern, if there's treatment, you kind of need to show, anything outside of the building envelope leading to, pipes leading to and from, and the metering and all of that. But you can get your site plan approved without having a fully approved OWRS permit. But you cannot get your building plan approved until you have a fully approved OWRS permit. So your OWRS permit, which would be the complete design of your project, could happen anywhere from the outset of the project up through to the end, but you will not get building permits until you've gotten the full design completed and approved.
Okay, I understand that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marla, for asking the question and for going ahead and asking Rebecca. Thank you for that explanation. All right, we have a question that was answered. So I'll go ahead and read it out loud in the Q&A portion. Again, if you can please submit the questions in the Q&A portion, it kind of helps us keep track of which ones have been answered. And you can also go ahead and type the answers as well. One of the questions was, when is the PPR book form going live? And Steve went ahead and answered that it's being tested now so far, and it's to be working as intended. And it helps to roll it out at the end of the month. Steve, did you have anything else that you wanted to add to that response, or are you?
No, ma'am. That's
okay.
That's what I know right now.
Okay, awesome. All right, we have one question in the Q&A portion. For expedited, what are the fees for submitting a revision to a residential project, and how do the fees compare to submitting through residential review?
Let me post. I'm trying to think of a good way to answer that question. So just briefly, an expedited residential revision is going to be more expensive than a residential plan review revision, and that's the fee that will be paid by the customer is going to consist of our intake fee, which is $276, plus our completeness check fee, which is $2,100 roughly. And then it's going to be a fee, an hourly fee per discipline. So it would depend on, for a residential project, it would depend on, is it just a technical review revision? Is it zoning and technical? Does it also involve tree and or fire?
See that. Go ahead.
And let me post, if I can, let me post our fee schedule. Or actually, if Isis, if you could post the fee schedule in the chat.
And I believe one of our one of our staff members went ahead and answered with that link, but I'll post it in the chat.
Oh, excellent. Thank you, Myra.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Okay. The next question, and again, if you would like to raise your hand, speak and ask the question verbally, you are free to do so. I will go ahead and answer the questions that are in the Q&A portion. Now that you are promoting 2 and 3 single family units in one lot, will a 2 or 3 unit site be considered multifamily in regards to reclaimed water system and on-site water reuse? Steve, I see you typing, did you want to answer that question? Or was there anybody else in the team that wanted to answer it? You need it, Steve.
I'm not sure that I can completely answer that question, but I was going to just type in there that the definition of the term, the land development code term, multifamily land use was changed in the Home 1 ordinance. And so that definition used to paraphrase, it used to essentially say 3 or more dwelling units on a site was considered multifamily. Now that definition has been changed to say that 4 or more units on a site is considered multifamily. So to that end, I don't want to speak for Rebecca, but my guess is that because that definition changed, a 3-unit project would not be considered multifamily because it's not multifamily. It's what's called the home ordinance introduced a new land use category called 3-unit residential.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would keep in mind that we're talking for our ordinance, we're talking about 250,000 square feet or greater.
Right.
So we do have some developments where it has to be, there's multiple buildings, and if it's all duplexes, if you have 250,000 square feet of duplexes, which we have actually seen like three, like a big, single family home development, it wouldn't apply to that kind of a project. And you're saying 4, I had in my head that it was 5, but maybe it is 4, but yeah, it still has to be a cumulative 250,000.
All right, thank you for that question. All right, let's see. I will give the opportunity for anybody to raise their hand. I think I see one hand. Go ahead. Marla, did you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yeah, I have a lot of questions. One is back for the reclaimed water. I know we do a lot of like ESPAs where they don't have the design come back in time from Austin Energy. So we have a deferred ESPA. Do you think that has ever been discussed regarding the reclaimed water? If it's not done, it won't hold up necessarily the permit, but we wouldn't get, say, our finals if we didn't have that go back through the revision period.
Again, I'm having a little bit of a tricky time understanding, but maybe what I'm hearing is that we have these certain dates where our requirements are effective, and so if your review got delayed by Austin Energy, would that impact whether our
No, I'm sorry.
No, okay.
That was confusing. No, what I was actually asking you is if the design has not been completed when we're ready to go to building review, could we do a deferred submittal so that we could go ahead and get a building permit but we couldn't get finals until the reclaimed water process and even probably the whole design done before we get our finals for our building permit. Or I mean, our building, a CO. So I'm asking, I guess, does this have to be done before I go to permit? I mean, completed.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
has to be
okay.
done before your permit is approved. Mhm.
No, or even go to permit. If I go.
You can, it does not
to
have to be
review.
done before you go to permit. It has to be done before you get your permit approved.
Okay, all right. There will never be a deferred submittal for that sort of thing.
I'm not familiar with that process.
Okay.
Maybe
Well, I
somebody
will
else can
email
speak to
you.
it.
Yeah.
We'll talk more about it. Okay.
I think it's tough. Todd, I
Thank
see
you.
did you want to have some input, Todd?
Yeah, Marla, on the deferred submittal process, most of the things in deferred submittals are some sort of special inspection like trusses or, garden handrails or structural steel or something like that. So we can delay that and it won't stop inspections because we can get the letters after the fact. On the reclaimed water, it'd be part of your plumbing system. So you couldn't start building the building and get a plumbing top out or anything else without having the system created. So we wouldn't really be able to defer it because you couldn't get the inspections in your walls as you went along for.
Right, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Thanks, Marla, again for your question, and thank you, Todd, our building official, for more context in that answer. We did have one question that was answered by Cliff from our IT, Cliff Phillips from IT team. He had a question asking about issues with the new ABC portal and when they will be resolved. And you are able to see that answer. As issues arise, we are tracking the issues and forwarding them to our Communications and Technology Management Department, who is overseeing that resolution with the vendor. And they're working directly to resolve those issues as quickly as possible. So appreciate everyone's patience as those issues get resolved. All right.
Can I add something to that? I'm sorry, this is Cliff.
Absolutely, go for it, Cliff.
I know that CTM, as we work with them, they are prioritizing these issues based on how severe the problem is. We run into multiple problems that I know some folks, problems as simple as logins to not being able to see what they need to see, or things get to what they need to get to. So there's meetings every day. They discuss with us what needs to happen and what is going, what's next in line. I wish I had a timeline to tell you when all this was going to be resolved, but we simply are just handling these as they arise. It is a vendor solution, so we have to go to them for the resolution. So again, second what Issa said, appreciate everybody's patience. I know this has been a trying time, but we are and they are working on this very diligently to try to get everything resolved as quickly as possible.
We still have some time to answer some more questions. The ones that have been answered, you're able to see them in the Q&A portion. If you want to raise your hand, I see somebody's hand, so I will go ahead. And David, did you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yeah, and I apologize if I missed a portion of this answer during the actual presentation. But I am curious about what specifically is being done to try and help improve the interdepartmental communication between inspections and commercial plan review. Most specifically, I have an awful lot of clients that have been asking, how do we get inspectors in a meeting with plan reviewers at the same time so that there's consistent information for the drawings as it relates to actual construction. And it's most often related to phasing, where a contractor or a developer is trying to achieve phasing through TCOs, but there have been other instances as well.
I will go ahead and turn over to any members of our team who might have more insight on that.
David, this is Steve Leach.
Hi, Steve.
Hey, how are you?
Doing all right.
Are these meetings that you're asking about, would these be during plan review, before plan review, or after plan review?
Typically before. I've got a bunch of people asking if we can get inspectors in like a PPR meeting,
In a
for
PPR.
example. Yeah. Occasionally it's after, but it's usually before.
Yeah. Yeah, I obviously can't speak for inspections, but as you know, my organization does schedule PPRs, and you know what I would tell you is, if you want to get an inspector in a PPR, or one of the managers, or even Tim, you know, let me know. If you've got a specific project in mind, you know, let us know, and I can try and coordinate that. It's not a standard offering, but that's it's not completely off the wall, and I don't think it would be too difficult to arrange.
Yeah, Steve, I think this is Tim Taylor, building inspections. Yeah, that's accurate, Steve. We don't have a process in place that I'm familiar with as a standard for this, but yeah, on a specific case, inspections wouldn't have any problem getting together with you. I know we have a lot of meetings after permits have been issued to clarify things that have come through plan review. Plus, we have several internal meetings between inspections and plan review. But David, to speak to if you want to set up with Steve or myself, or we will put it together to address any questions you have between plan review and inspections.
That would be fantastic.
Question. Yeah, no, it's a great question.
Way back in the day when everything was still in person, we used to, it was a little bit easier. Everybody was just right there. And that would happen on occasion, and it's been quite some time. So I appreciate that, gentlemen. Thank you.
Outstanding.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate your question. We have another attendee have their hand up, so and Travis Young, if you would like to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Hi.
Yeah, great. Thank you for today's presentations. For about 10 years, we had to do our BSPAs prior to our submittal for building permit application. And this was a preliminary review and helped us make sure there was no problems with setbacks or other issues. Recently, I had a project where we missed our setback off of a guy wire, and our building that we had designed was too close to the guy wire given the current setback requirements from the guy wire. Now that's got a pretty easy fix. The guy wire could be shortened. Instead of being a 17-foot long angled one, it could do with the guy wire with an outrigger. But we had submitted to expedited permit review, and so we got rejected from BSPA, and of course we were told that we wouldn't be able to continue with our permit review until the guy wire change was both designed, approved, and constructed. And that's going to be about 2.5 months. So I'm wondering, I assume there is, and maybe I missed it in the presentations, but just a simple email or some other place where we could submit plans for some preliminary review from Austin Energy to make sure that we've met all their setback criteria prior to us delving into spending money on expedited review, for example.
For your question, is there anybody from Austin Energy? I think that question was directed toward Austin Energy. No. I would like to correct that.
Good afternoon. This is Robert Reeves with the Meter Review Team. While we do review services, I think the question at hand is for a preliminary review. I believe that should go through the design intake process, because they are the ones who ultimately decide where the building and guidelines and all that stuff are in relation to the build. So in that scenario, I would say we would need to reach out to the design intake process and ask our design partners.
Okay, yeah, we can get more information on that, Travis, and follow up. All right. Okay. Let's see. We have one more question in the question and answer portion. Can we get interior non-structural demo permits put on the same processing time as GC assignment, especially due to the current delays at BCTS? Not effective to request one if they take longer to process than the commercial plan review we're trying to get ahead of. Most of our clients want to do demo when they submit to review. We'll give our folks a few times soon, a few moments to read it over. And if we don't have the answer, we will get back to you right away with the answer. Okay, I think this is something that we will get back to you and with more information. Okay, well, appreciate everybody's tuning in and everybody's time. If you have any more questions, feel free to message us at dscommunications@austintexas.gov. We will be compiling all of these questions and the answers and submitting to everybody. We'll also be sending a survey to let us know how we're doing. So please feel free to fill that out and let us know how we did in our engagement today. We will also be sending a copy of the recording and the presentation. Appreciate all of our attendees for tuning in, and in addition, all of our panelists and all of our staff members for the presentations and for joining us to answer any questions. Have a good rest of your afternoon, and thank you so much again for joining us.